This is an Andy's Randomness special report. Reporting now, Andy Pollock.
Good morning, everyone. Andy Pollock here, live from the Random Studio in Fresh Meadows, New York. We are going to be listening to the elected officials here in New York City. Well, downstate New York, that is. We will be waiting to hear from, of course, the meme, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. New Yorkers Love Me, a.k.a. our Governor, Andrew Cuomo.
And I love New York because New York loves you.
Let's play it again. I love this.
And I love New York because New York loves you.
Yes, so he will be speaking shortly. I will be playing the tape from de Blasio. I have a tape available from YouTube, so we'll be watching that. But again, I'll have to keep it at 720 because the bandwidth won't cooperate then. And I'm also downloading a 4GB file. I'm not going to say what it is because I need this file offline because, again, with everybody using the internet in my area, it can be hectic and I don't want to deal with buffering. So we will be waiting to hear from the governor, Andrew Cuomo. Okay, this is odd. I'm having a problem trying to connect to the live chat. Let's see if I can refresh it. Worst case scenario, I can just do that. There we go. Hopefully I should be able to see me. There we go. Now I can see me. I was getting worried. I couldn't check the chat. So, while Cuomo is speaking, I actually have to look for my Roku so I can get the feed from News 12 Long Island later on, because we're going to see if we can tune into Nassau County Executive Laura Curran, who normally would be speaking at 12:30. And Steve Ballone's normally updating Suffolk around, I'd say, 2 o'clock. But yesterday, he actually addressed Suffolk before 4 o'clock yesterday, which was surprising. And of course, I wasn't available to do... Let's see, he is speaking right now, but I am getting my notifications that he is speaking. So we are in a little bit of a delay, it looks like. So, here we go. Looks like he is coming out. Let me put it on pause for just a second so that way we can get the feed to load up. Okay, get my display capture. So without further ado, Andrew Cuomo's daily COVID-19 press briefing.
Total hospitalizations actually basically flat, technically tick down, which is probably the first tick down. So that's a good sign, but basically flat. So we think we are at the apex, on the plateau. The number of hospitalizations went up, flattened, continuing to flatten, good sign. Technically, the number's down a tad, statistically irrelevant, but better than being up. The net change in total hospitalizations, if you look at the curve, which is what we look at, the curve is down. When you do the 3-day average, which is more accurate than any one day, because remember, this reporting mechanism is new. We just put it in during this situation, so I wouldn't bet all the chips on any one day. But when you look at 3 days, you look at the overall curve, we think it's indicative. So the 3-day average is down. The net change in ICU admissions is down. Again, the ICU admissions I take with a grain of salt, since hospitals are no longer what they were, and they're basically all ICU wards. Intubations is a real number. That's the number of people who are being put on a ventilator. About 80% of those people will never come off a ventilator. So when you see the intubations, that is proportionate to the number of people we will lose. And that's what we've been watching all along. People go into the hospital, most get treated and are discharged. Some are not discharged. If they're intubated, about 80% of the people who are intubated will not come off the ventilator. The number of new people going into the hospital per day is also down, but we still have 1,600 new COVID cases yesterday. So we have 1,600 people new coming into the hospital, some being discharged, and the net is what we've been watching, but it's also interesting to note that you still have 1,600 new people walking into the hospital or who are in a hospital and then diagnosed with COVID. So the volume is still high, and that's why the hospitals are still working very hard. We have been watching for growth outside of New York City, Long Island, Westchester, Rockland. That has basically been flat. There have been little hot spots here and there. The Department of Health has been very good and aggressive in jumping on those hot spots and tamping them down, test, isolate, trace. And you see the numbers by region across the state. Proportionately, obviously, downstate New York, which is what we've been talking about, but looking for growth towards Long Island, Westchester, Rockland. Rest of the state, proportionately, upstate is very, very low to everything else in the state. This is something else we're watching. This is the number of deaths in nursing homes, and the nursing homes have been an increasing issue. The nursing home issue was flagged by the first cases we had in the state of Washington, because that is the vulnerable population in the vulnerable place. And we've been worrying about nursing homes from day one, as we saw in the state of Washington. But you see the percentage of loss of life is getting higher in the nursing homes compared to the hospitals. Lives lost yesterday, 778. That number is up, and that is, to me, the most painful number. And it has been the most painful number every day, and those New Yorkers are in our thoughts and prayers. You look at the past few days and the number of lives lost, it's basically flat at a devastating level of pain and grief. But it evidences everything else we're seeing, which is basically a flattening at this level. The statisticians will say number of lives lost is a lagging indicator, which is a nice scientific term, but it doesn't mean it just is not just terrible, terrible, terrible news, and nothing we can do about it. Although many New Yorkers are doing everything they can to save people's lives on a daily basis, a great personal cost to themselves. Total number of deaths is 10,834. What we have learned through this process is that our actions determine our destiny, and that's actually good news. We changed the curve. Every projection model, White House, CDC, coronavirus, White House task force, Columbia, Cornell, Gates-funded group, every projection had a higher rate of infection, higher rate of death. CDC was talking about over 1 million people. CDC was talking about projections that would have swamped the nation's hospital system. That didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Because of what we did. And that's important to remember and realize. We changed the curve. Better way to say it is we are changing the curve every day. We have shown that we control the virus doesn't control us. And this is a big deal. Look, we could have been in a place where we couldn't stop the spread of the virus. We could have done this whole lockdown, closed down, shut down, and you still could have seen those numbers going up. That would have been a frightening place. We should take some comfort in the fact that we have demonstrated that we can actually control the spread of the virus. Now, tremendous, dramatic pain to do it, shut down everything. But thank God we can control the spread. Can you imagine how bad a situation it would be if we did all of this and you still saw those numbers going up? You lock up your family, you protect them, but somehow the virus still infiltrated the house. That would have been frightening. So there is good news in this. But there's also a caution flag. We are, in some ways, artificially controlling that curve. We've taken all these extraordinary actions and we are reducing the rate of infection. That means whatever we do today will determine the infection rate tomorrow. It is total cause and effect. So you stop doing what you're doing or you behave differently and you will get a different result. And that's important to remember as we talk about reopening. Everybody's anxious to reopen. I get it. I'm anxious to reopen. Cara and Michaela went out of the house. I trust you. They trust me. They love me. They love spending time with me, but they're sort of done with the entire experience. And that's universal. People need to get back to work. The state needs an economy. We cannot sustain this for a prolonged period of time. Everybody agrees. But everybody will also say how you reopen is everything because of the first point, which is we are now keeping down that rate of infection. And if you start acting differently, you will see a corresponding increase in that rate of infection. And the worst scenario would be if we did all of this, we got that number down, everybody went to extraordinary means, and then we go to reopen and we oh, really? Go look at other countries that went through exactly this, started to reopen, and then they saw the infection rate go back up again. So let's at least learn from past mistakes. We've laid out a way to reopen, coming up with a comprehensive plan. First, that is regional in nature. We have 7 states that we're working with. The virus doesn't understand state boundaries. Doesn't understand that it needs a passport. You know, it defies all of our norms. So how do you put the best minds together in a 7-state area, come up with a regional strategy? Because the virus can get on Amtrak, the virus can get on a plane, the virus can get in a car and drive up 95. We're all connected. And in truth, since nobody knows where they're going, and nobody's done this before, let's think together and let's plan together. If we can't come up with a common plan, let's see if we can come up with a plan that's not contradictory. Let's see if we can get to a place where what Connecticut does, New Jersey does, is not counter to what we're doing here in New York. And that's the point of the 7 states working together. Also, the point is it doesn't work unless you coordinate the reactivation of all the systems. I did this graphic because no one got when I went like this yesterday. And I said the gears have to mesh. This is what I was saying. I could see, Nick, that you did not get what this meant. So that's a clarifier for you personally from yesterday. We also have to be clear on who is responsible for each element of the opening. The President said last night that he has total authority for determining how and when states reopen. That is not an accurate statement, in my opinion. Now that we know that government actually matters and government is relevant and that government has to be smart, because what government does is determining how this goes. It's literally determining, in many ways, life and death. We have to be smart about it. The federal-state relationship is central to our democracy. This has been a topic discussed since our founding fathers first decided to embark on this entire venture, right? This is basic federalism, the role of the states and the role of the federal government. It is important that we get this right. Our founding fathers understood, and we have to remember today, that the balance between the state and the federal, that magnificent balance that is articulated in the Constitution, is the essence of our democracy. We don't have a king in this country. We didn't want a king, so we have a constitution and we elect a president. The states, the colonies, formed the federal government. The federal government did not form the states. It's the colonies that ceded certain responsibility to a federal government. All other power remains with the states. It's basic to our Constitution and that federal-state relationship. Hamilton, who in many ways was representative of this discussion of the balance of power. State governments possess inherent advantages which will ever give them an influence and ascendancy, a beautiful word, over the national government, and will forever preclude the possibility of federal encroachments on the states. That their liberties indeed can be subverted by the federal head is repugnant to every rule of political calculation. Strong language, but that was the premise. So there are laws and there are facts, even in this wild political environment. What do? We do what we do because we are New York tough, but tough is more complex than many people think it is. Within that word tough is smart and united and disciplined and loving. They are not they're not inconsistent to be tough and to be loving. Let me make a personal point, not necessarily a factual point. The president did his where he's clearly unhappy, did a tweet about mutiny on the Bounty and governors are mutineers. I didn't follow the exact meaning of the tweet, but the basic essence of the tweet was that he was not happy with governors and that this was a mutiny. The president is clearly spoiling for a fight on this issue. The worst thing we can do in all of this is start with political division and start with partisanship. The best thing we have done throughout this past 44 days is we've worked together and we haven't raised political flags. Even in this hyper-partisan environment, even though it's an election year, doing the right thing, working together. And that's important, and we have to stay there. We're all in a little bit of a reflective mood. I'm in a reflective mood. And everything we do here is so important, and every day is so important. And I was thinking after the president made his comments and looking at some of the remarks and looking at the tweets, reminded me of a poster I saw when I was in grade school. St. Gerard Magella, Queens, New York, Catholic school. Red blazer, gray pants, white shirt, little clip-on tie, the tie with the hook. Remember the hook tie that you had to put the hook on, and then it looked like you had a real tie, which I never understood because the hook was harder to do. You had to hook and then you had to adjust the band, which was harder than just teaching a kid how to just tie the tie. Would have been easier. But I was in grade school and there was that poster that came from a Sandberg poem, I think. Suppose they gave a war and nobody came. And I was looking at the poster, and I didn't really get it because even then I was very literal. Suppose they gave a war and nobody came. So I'm looking at the poster, and a priest came up behind me and said, "What's wrong, Andrew?" I said, "I don't understand that. Suppose they gave a war and nobody came. How could that happen? Then you wouldn't have a war." He said, "Well, that's the point. The point is what would happen if people just refused to engage? They just refused to fight." And I still didn't get it and he said, sometimes it's better to walk away from a fight than engage it. Sometimes it takes more strength, frankly, to walk away from a fight than engage it. The president will have no fight with me. I will not engage in it. I've sat here every day for 44 years asking New Yorkers to remember that this is not about me, it's about we. I understand you're personally inconvenienced. I understand you're frustrated and stressed and anxious and you're feeling pain. Think about we. Think about get past yourself and think about society and think about your family and think about interconnection and act responsibly for everyone else. This is no time for politics, and it is no time to fight. I put my hand out in total partnership and cooperation with the president. If he wants a fight, he's not going to get it from me. Period. This is going to take us working together. We have a real challenge ahead. Just because those numbers are flattening, it's no time to relax. We're not out of the woods. In this reopening, we could lose all the progress we made in 1 week if we do it wrong. And we have a number of challenges ahead. We have to figure out how to do this. How do you have a public health strategy that works with an economic reactivation strategy? Nobody has done this before. How do you start to increase the number of essential workers? How do you learn the lessons of the past? How do you start to do the massive testing that we're going to have to do here and that we don't have the capacity to do today? The capacity does not exist. The private sector companies that do testing, we can only get about 60,000 tests per month. That's not enough. We're going to do the antibody testing, but that's not enough either. How do we do this? Put together this whole testing system and do it in a matter of weeks? It is a real question. How do we use technology? Apple and other companies are working on using technology to do tracking. How do we do that? And how do we do it fast? And how do we take all our strength and our collective strength and take this nation's collective strength and figure out how to do those challenges? 50 years ago this week, Apollo 13 gets damaged 220,000 miles from Earth. Somehow they figure out how to get a spaceship back 220,000 miles 50 years ago. That's America. Okay, figure out how to do testing. Figure out how to use technology to do tracing. That's what we have to work on. And we have to do that together. We have to do as a government what our people have done, right? Sometimes political leaders can learn best from following people. who are normally ahead of the politicians. Look at how people have been selfless and put their own agenda aside for the common good. Can't their leaders be as smart as they are? The answer has to be yes. So I look forward to working with the president in partnership and cooperation, but he has no fight here. I won't let it happen. And look, unless he suggested that we do something that would be reckless and endanger the health or welfare of the people of the state, then I would have no choice. But shy of that, I put my hand out to say, let's do this together. Questions?
Come.
And I love New York because New York loves you.
All right. So once again, that was the one, the only, the meme himself, Mr. New Yorkers Love Me, a.k.a. Andrew Cuomo's daily COVID-19 press briefing. Once again, you clearly saw the curve has, in fact, flattened. Once again. So, let's keep this trend going. And, you know, it's a day by day. You don't really know what's going to happen, obviously. So, good news is I got everything set up. That's the main thing. I got the Elgato set up. So I just have to turn on the TV and I can get News 12 Long Island later on. So I'll try to flick it on for you. Put that as a priority. So we're going to go to Mayor de Blasio from this morning. In just a second. So I have to find the tape from de Blasio. So we are going to look for it. Hang on for a second. I can find it. Something funny I just saw my suggested. The entire GTA San Andreas, but it's Google translated. Oh boy. That is just funny. I'm just saving it to my watch history. That is just too funny. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Trying to find it. It'll take a while to find the feed from this morning. Here we go. Found it. Can even play it. See if I can get it on. Okay, there we go. So, now we are going to watch Mayor Bill de Blasio's COVID-19 briefing from earlier this morning. If it'll even load, that would be great. But I don't think I see it coming up.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay, there we go. Just rewind it. All right, so here we go.
Good morning, everybody. Well, today we have some very important news for all New Yorkers. We've had some real breakthroughs. One in particular I want to talk about related to testing, which has been the topic we've all been focused on now for months and months. So I'm going to give you some important news and some good news, but I want to frame it first because this really comes down to how New York City and New Yorkers are responding to this crisis. Now, this is a city that has always been a special place, has always been a place full of energy, creativity, entrepreneurship. This is a place, everyone knows it, all over the nation, all over the world. This is a place where people make things happen. And even in the midst of this crisis, New Yorkers have been making things happen. You know, small things in the neighborhood to help people out, big things that could change lives and save lives as well. The spirit of ingenuity, the spirit of fight has been so clear over these last weeks in this city, and it's growing all the time. People are not only are New Yorkers not giving up, New Yorkers never give up. New Yorkers are forging ahead to find new ways to fight back against the coronavirus. And look, this is who we are. This is a place where we believe in getting things done. And I have challenged the members of my team to do things that were previously not doable, not thinkable, but now have to be in light of the crisis we're facing and all the problems we've had getting our federal government to respond, getting the markets all over the world to be reliable, all the challenges we've faced trying to get the supplies we need and the help we need have created a reality for us where we have to defend ourselves, we have to fight for ourselves, we have to create things here, even if they were never created before. So that's who we are as a people. And that's what New Yorkers are showing once again, one of the greatest crises we've ever felt. Let me talk to you today about how we got to what I'm about to tell you about. Over these last years, we've seen in New York City more and more the growth of
Hang on a second, folks. We are having technical issues, so just stand by. We're going to have to maybe downgrade the video to 480. Can we do that instead? Maybe that might help it. Okay, there we go. Looks like we're going to be able to play it this way. So let's hope we can get the tape to play back.
advanced manufacturing, the growth of biotech, the growth of the technology sector. Over these last years, more and more capacity growing in this city. And it's allowing us to do things that before would not have been imaginable. So let me start with the crucial supplies that we depend on to protect our healthcare workers and our first responders, the personal protective equipment. I've taken several trips out to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I've tried to show all of you the amazing work happening there. But what I first want to tell you about today is that this work is now being supercharged. The face shields, which are so crucial to keeping our heroes safe, started modestly. People in the Brooklyn Navy Yard making the face shields by hand with the components they could get, a wartime factory for wartime conditions. I told you a few days ago on Sunday that when it came to face shields, we really need them, but we only had enough to get through this week when you look at all the hospitals of our city. But now we are having a real breakthrough. The companies that came together have now been joined by more companies. Now we have 8 companies in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, the Brooklyn Army Terminal, and in Manhattan. After will be to produce 620,000 face shields per week right here in New York City, made by New York City workers and New York City companies. That is enough to reach the crisis standard we're working under right now. What this means is we will be able to fulfill our entire need for face shields right here in New York City. Now we're going to keep working to get more outside, obviously. We want a bigger supply. We want to make sure we're secure for the future. We want to someday move off that crisis standard and go higher to an even better standard. But so long as we're in the middle of this war, so long as we're fighting the coronavirus in the kind of crisis dynamics we are in now, for the first time with something as important as face shields, one of the major PPEs, we're going to be able to say we are self-sufficient. New York City will be self-sufficient. We will no longer be at the whim of either the federal government, the international markets. We won't have to import things from overseas. We will be self-sufficient. That's the first point. The second point, surgical gowns. Now, we need a huge number of these every week. This is an area where it's not possible yet to be self-sufficient, but where we're making huge, huge strides. Again, on Sunday, I told you this was an area I was deeply concerned about, where we had enough to get through this week, but we couldn't tell you yet about next week. We're moving to get major supplies in from all over the country, so this is an area where we do see some relief coming. But again, we will be best off if the most possible surgical gowns are made right here in New York City. 5 companies are now participating in this effort to protect our heroes. They're in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, they're in Sunset Park, they're in the Garment Center in Manhattan, and in Long Island City, Queens. They're currently only making 30,000 per week, but by next week that will go up to 100,000. Soon thereafter, we want to get to 250,000 surgical gowns per week, and then we're looking to go even farther. So this is an area where we're going to make a lot of progress. These are particularly important to protecting those who are saving our lives. Another great example of New York City ingenuity and the speed with which New Yorkers can move. Both these items I just told you about, face shields, surgical gowns, were never, in recent memory, made in New York City. These are brand new production lines created from scratch by companies here, by New York City workers, in an atmosphere crisis, and they've surpassed any possible expectation we could have, and they're going farther. But look, as much as we've been so deeply concerned about the PPEs, and we're going to be concerned about them until this crisis is over, because they mean protection for those who are saving our lives. The number one issue from day one has been testing. When we started fighting the coronavirus here in the city, we said we needed the federal help with testing. It never came. We have scoured the world looking for test kits on the open market. It's been extraordinarily frustrating. We've had so many good people searching everywhere just to buy the test kits, to get a reliable supply. It has not been possible. So over months now, the place we turned to for help, Washington, D.C., we never got a straight answer. We never got a consistent approach. And we wondered, when would the day come that we could actually get the test kits we need so we could start on that road that I talked to you about a few days ago, from this widespread transmission of the coronavirus to low-level transmission and eventually no transmission. To get there, you must have testing in large quantities. And we knew that as recently as yesterday, we did not know when and where we would get those test kits. Now, we've had one breakthrough on the open market and then another breakthrough right here in New York City, and I'm so excited to tell you about this. Our friends from Carmel, Indiana, I talked about them a few days ago. They donated test kits. A biotech firm there donated test kits to us. But now they have confirmed they can produce them regularly for New York City. So on top of their donation of 50,000 kits, which we're so appreciative for, ARIA Diagnostics, Carmel, Indiana, is now going to be producing test kits for New York City. We will be purchasing them starting Monday, April 20th. It's coming Monday. We'll be purchasing 50,000 full test kits per week from ARIA Diagnostics. I'm sure New Yorkers wouldn't have thought that the cavalry would come from Carmel, Indiana, but it has. This is going to be a big piece of the solution going forward. We're going to get a whole lot more, I want to be clear, because to really get to that point where there's no more transmission, we're going to need a huge number of test kits. But even being able to know we can rely on 50,000 a week from a supplier that we believe in, that's going to be a major, major step forward for this city. I want to thank Mayor Jim Brainerd of Carmel, Indiana, who I've gotten to know over the last few years very well at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He and I are on the leadership of that body, and he has been an extraordinary friend and ally and really stepped up for New York City. So Mayor Brainerd, again, thank you. Thank you to everyone in Carmel. Thank you to ARIA Diagnostics. This is a big step. So that's 50,000 per week, but we're going to need a lot more. And remember, a test kit, and I talked about this a few days ago. I used the analogy of a cup of coffee with cream and sugar. You need the coffee beans, you need the water, you need the cream, you need the sugar, you need the coffee mug. Putting together the full test kit takes three basic components: the nasal swab, the liquid solution, that's what you keep the sample in, it's called the viral transport medium, and a tube with a screw top that keeps the sample secure and sanitary. You need all three of those things to perform a test for the coronavirus. And then, of course, you have to get that test to a lab that then processes it. So we're talking right now about just collecting the test itself from an individual. A whole nother part of the equation is continuing to increase the capacity in labs to process these tests and give us the answer person by person, positive or negative. And again, we're going to have to do that on a mass scale going forward. But to get these three parts together so you can collect a test from someone, well, you can't get to first base unless you have the actual test that you can collect from people. So needing those three pieces was crucial. Again, our efforts to get them consistently from Washington, D.C., no result. Our efforts to get them from the open market never could get a reliable partner until today with ARIA Diagnostics. So as we went through these last days and saw New York City companies stepping up, our local government, particularly our Economic Development Corporation, bringing together partners from the private sector, figuring out how we could do surgical gowns, figuring out how we could do face shields, starting to figure out other equipment that we need to build. And we'll have announcements on that too, constantly figuring out new ways to support our hospitals and get them the supplies and equipment they need. More and more, what's happened is the members of our team here at City Hall, Economic Development Corporation, and companies, and even universities now, all talking about what can we produce here, how can we do it more and more, how can we do things that have never been done in New York City. So just a few days ago, people started saying, wait a minute, if we can make all these other things, could we say, no matter what's going on in the international market, no matter what's going on in Washington, could we actually make the test kits here? There's nothing like it in New York City being made right now, nothing even close, but could we make them here? If we just threw in the kitchen sink and tried all the ingenuity that exists in this city. At first, of course, we didn't know what the answer would be. We had to pull together a lot of smart people to figure out, could it be done? Could it be done quickly enough? Could it be done in the quantities that we needed? And we thought about what New Yorkers are facing. We thought about this crisis and what we have to get through. And we said, well, if people can make them around the world, why not us? Why couldn't we make them, even if we've never done it before? Companies all over the world could make some of these components. Why couldn't the most innovative city on earth figure out a way? So I'm here to announce to you that we have found a way. And starting in a few weeks, we will be producing here in New York City 50,000 test kits per week with components put together right here with companies, universities, New York City workers right here, building a brand new supply chain to feed this industry that will now develop in New York City. 50,000 tests per week to begin. And if we can go farther, we're going to build it up rapidly. It means commercial labs and academic institutions in this city working together to produce that liquid solution the right way. It means local manufacturers and 3D printers coming together to make the testing swabs and the tubes. Something as simple as those testing swabs, the entire international market has been struggling because those swabs have been less and less available. In fact, a lot of them are made in places that were deep in the middle of the COVID crisis themselves. So the whole international supply was disrupted. But now, through the ingenuity of New York City producers, figured a way to make them right here. Production will begin in a few weeks, at the beginning of May. 50,000 a week to begin. Add that to the 50,000 a week from ARIA Diagnostics. We'll have 100,000 full test kits per week that New York City can rely on, 400,000 per month, and that's just a beginning. So we will have to take that new capacity, ensure that there are labs that can handle all those tests and get us results in real time. And remember, we're going to need the personnel to administer the tests. We're going to need the PPEs to protect the personnel who administer the test. There are a lot of pieces to this equation. And all the while, continuing as a city to make the progress we're making through social distancing and shelter in place. So even while we're building out this brand new capacity, and it's going to help us to the next stage, we will not let our foot off the gas. We will not relent in the successful strategies that are now opening the door to getting out of this horrible crisis. But I want to keep cautioning. It takes all these pieces coming together. Now, the good news is, as we see some progress on the hospital front, and we're far from out of the woods, because we see some progress, that's going to give us a little more ability to free up some medical personnel for testing. As we see some progress getting more PPEs, that'll allow us to devote more PPEs to testing. But all these pieces have to come together, and we're still not in a situation where we can say it's going to be easy. It's not. But we need to find a way to keep building up the testing, because it's one of the foundations of getting to that next phase. When you get to that next phase, when you get to low-level transmission, remember, then you're able to constantly test people, figure out who has the coronavirus, needs to be isolated, needs to be quarantined, get them the support they need, keep them away from other folks that they might infect. You have to know how to constantly trace anyone who has been infected, the people in their life who might have been exposed, so you can get to them, test them, isolate them if they need it. It's a constant moving machine to ensure that the cases, each and every one individually, are addressed. And you go back to a containment strategy, which is where we were weeks ago when we had the very first cases here in New York City. That's where we want to get back to. But to do that, we need a whole lot of testing. For the first time, we're going to have a truly reliable, major supply of testing. And I'm so proud of my fellow New Yorkers. I'm so proud of the people in the companies who are helping us. So proud of the people in my administration who put together this plan. You know, a lot of folks would have said this was impossible. They're making it possible, and that's what New Yorkers do. Now, I want to be crystal clear. This does not let the federal government off the hook. So please, even though I'm telling you good news and something unprecedented and a real breakthrough, it does not take away the responsibility the federal government has. Not only do they have to deal with the fact that for months and months they didn't do what they needed that could have helped us stop this crisis from growing the way it has, but they still have to come through now, because the amount of testing we're going to need, the amount of testing that's going to be needed all over the country is vast. But hopefully the example New York City is setting will be recognized in Washington, that if we can do it here, a place that doesn't produce tests has figured out a way to do it, then why can't it be done all over this country? Why can't we build up a supply that could protect all of us? If the federal government can't figure it out, then get out of the way and let us at the local level get this done. But support us. Get us the components. Get us the help so that we can do this rapidly and protect ourselves. So I want to see how far we can go, how quickly we can go. 50,000 test kits produced in New York City per week starting in the beginning of May is just the beginning from my point of view. I want to see how far we can take this, and I want to challenge all New Yorkers who could contribute to this effort. I want to challenge the academic labs. I want to challenge the research labs. I want to challenge the manufacturers. I want to challenge the 3D printers, all the companies with 3D printing, the biotech companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the research universities, the chemical companies. If you're in New York City or you're in any part of the New York area or anywhere in the country and you want to help build this effort, we need you. We're going to need a lot of help to make this work. You can be a part of history. You can do something unprecedented. You can save lives through this effort. So everyone who can help, please, right away, communicate with us. Let us know you're willing. Let us know you're ready. Email us at testhelp@edc.nyc. Again, testhelp@edc.nyc. We need you. We'll be responding to people. As soon as the emails come in, we're going to be reaching out to people because this needs to move immediately. And anyone out there who could help us, I want to say thank you in advance because this is going to be a huge step forward. So, again, everything I just talked about is about taking us on that journey from where we are now, high level of transmission, widespread transmission of coronavirus, deep in this crisis, to low level transmission where we go to that containment strategy and we get to trace each case, get people isolated, quarantined, support them, reduce the number of cases all the time, and then no transmission, the place we all want to get to, where the coronavirus is a rarity in this city and life goes back to normal. That's the journey we're on. The testing is crucial, but also making sure we use the right strategy. And again, the social distancing, the shelter in place, it is working, New York City. You're doing an amazing job. You, again, are the heroes because you're following these rules in an unprecedented manner, 8.6 million people together. We need to keep doing it. And I said every day we'll go over those 3 indicators that we announced yesterday to tell you where we stand. We'll all watch them together. We'll all know where we are. We've got to see consistent progress to be able to talk about any changes in those rules and restrictions that are working. So we're going to stick with them until we see really sustained progress. So going over the numbers today, the new numbers. Again, you'll be able to see this online, nyc.gov/coronavirus. So when it comes to the daily number of people admitted to hospitals for suspected coronavirus conditions, that number has gone down, I'm happy to say. Remember, these statistics have been verified. There's a 2-day lag because of when the information comes in from the hospital. So this goes back to April 12th. That's the latest confirmed information. But April 12th, 2 days ago, we saw a reduction from the day before. It went from 383 April 11th to 326 April 12th. That's the correct direction. That's a good thing. But now here's a situation where we don't have good news on this statistic. The daily number of people in ICUs across our health and hospital system, our 11 hospitals, for suspected COVID-19. That number from April 11th to April 12th actually went up from 835 to 850. Then the other measure, percentage of people tested who are positive for COVID-19. Citywide, that number again went up. April 11th, 58.1%, April 12th, 59.6%. The public health labs tests, again, that number went up. April 11th, 78.4% to 84% on April 12th. So look, again, this is the real world, real talk. We had a really good day yesterday. Progress, all those indicators all went down together today. No such luck. It does not mean you should be discouraged. It's just a reminder we're going to fight our way out of this. It's not going to happen overnight. There'll be good days and bad days. We got to start some momentum here. You need to keep at it. We all need to keep at it with the social distancing, with the shelter in place, because it's working. Every day we have to win that battle to prove that we can reduce the spread of this virus, get those indicators to go down in unison over a longer period of time. And then we'll be in a position to talk about our next steps. But I think what's clear is people will be able to see what we're doing and what's working and be reminded there's going to be ups and downs, but sticking to the strategy is the best way forward. Okay, I'll summarize now with a few words in Spanish.
All right, so that was Bill de Blasio with a big announcement, and that is, it looks like the city of New York is going to be working on rapid testing for COVID-19. I'm just fast forwarding the tape. Yeah, that's just the rest of the press conference. Okay, because we are waiting to hear if Laura Curran will be giving an update for Nassau County I'm assuming she may be speaking at 12:30. We don't know that yet. So, what I'm gonna do right now to accommodate the Long Island viewers, we're gonna end this live stream right now, so that way I can get the Roku set up. I can tape News 12 Long Island and get you the Long Island briefings later this afternoon, because it'll be much easier to go down that path than worrying about, oh, am I going to have good quality for this stream, blah, blah, blah. Because, de Blasio made an important announcement. That's why I had to get it out there for you all. So, yeah, we're going to wrap this up. Any comments from anybody? I'll read them right now. Yeah, Joy Jung, as long as we keep flattening the curve, we have a good shot to reopen the economy. We have a very good shot. But remember, de Blasio said we need the testing. If we don't have the rapid testing, and the same thing Cuomo said, if we get rapid testing, especially if you have the in-home testing kits, like imagine you get tested for an STD, right? It was a pandemic 40-something years ago. But that was only through sexual intercourse. That's a whole different story. We're talking about a virus, right? It spreads from person to person. You want to at least know you get tested quicker. Wait, because the reason why we're in this situation is we are in a unforeseen circumstance of, oh, we don't have the testing. We don't have ways to get people back to their regular life. We don't have that right now. We can't get you in a large crowd or get you in to work. Stuff like that. We only get that is if we get the rapid testing. So that's excellent news that de Blasio is actually realizing that this cannot continue. We have to reopen the economy. We have to. Because how much more of this can we take? Especially how you can, I hate to say this, but you cannot have an economy shut down during the summer. That would be very, very alarming to have a whole economy shut down from next month to September. And I'll even mention, somebody tweeted to me the other day that they were already testing diesel equipment for the Long Island Railroad for the Cannonball train to come next month. So, trust me, I will be talking to the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council about that next month. That's the only question I'll be asking them, because Hector Garcia was so efficient this month when I spoke to him a couple weeks back about New Hyde Park, because I know worst case scenario, if I see something in a committee book that doesn't look normal, because I'm waiting to hear for the New Hyde Park situation, because trust me, I am eager to get to New Hyde Park once this virus is over, because I'm putting that as priority number one. I am. Now, if I go to Hicksville, if I go to Penn Station, doesn't really matter. I'll get out to New Hyde Park. I don't care. I'm going to make it a top priority, folks. You have my word on that. It is going to happen. Okay, so I think with that, we're going to wrap up this live stream. Thank you all very much for watching. This has been an Andy's Randomness Special Report.
This has been an Andy's Randomness Special Report.